It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. For those of you who are just joining in, you joined in at the perfect time. This is the holiday series. This is the series that I do every year. This is our 7th year doing it, is where we focus on nonprofit organizations. I started this series back in the first holidays of 2018 because I personally believe the holidays are about giving and receiving. So it's fun to receive all those presents in whatever fashion your family does it. But it's also really fun to give and to give to others. And I thought, what better way to give than to start a series around nonprofits? And how can we, as a community of Her Success Story, make a difference in the world? So this year, I'm doing something a little different. I've never done this before. I'm actually doing it with a big ask. We have about 6 or 7 nonprofit interviews this year, which is what we average at. We usually average about 6 to 8 or 5 to 8. If every listener can show up with $10 for every nonprofit, it's less than a cost of a dinner out. If we as community can give a dinner to 6 to 7 nonprofits and make an impact, how cool is that? So that's my big ask this year. Most importantly, we've been meeting and are going to continue to meet amazing nonprofit leaders. And today I have with me my guest, Melissa Giraud. She's co-founder of Embrace Race. It was founded in 2016 and has been its co-director since she founded this. She finds the work of organizing parents, caregivers, and communities to raise a race-brave generation and to increase our own capacities to act justly, the most satisfying professional work that she has ever done. The very cool thing is, as we educate, Melissa is an educator. She's a former school teacher. She's worked for NPR. She has an amazing, diverse background, but she's truly leaned in from her personal experience, from a multicultural experience, to make a difference more than anything for the children of the world. So, Melissa, thank you for joining me here today.
Oh, Ivy, thank you so much. That was so sweet. And I really commend you on using the power, the privilege you have, because we all have it, to sort of pay it forward and throw something to nonprofits. I really admire that. It's an example to follow for sure.
Let's talk about the beginning of this. So you started this in 2016. So this has been around. I'll tell you, hats off to you. But let's get the backstory. Let's get what was the catalyst of starting Embrace Race for you?
Yeah. Right. Well, as you said, I am an educator. That's one of the roles, whether it was in a classroom or as an NPR producer. I always think about how to educate. And one of the things I certainly noticed in my classroom and in my life, right, was that kids were confused about race. Parents, educators thought they kind of couldn't talk about it. And the result in my own life was just being from a multiracial, multicultural, immigrant parents kind of family, was that I even didn't talk about race with my parents. And race came up a lot, like in terms of patterns that we saw,
Right.
who had power, all of the things. So, it was not great for me. It was not great for all of the kids, no matter their color, in the classrooms I was teaching. Later, as I became a parent, I realized not great for the kids in my household or the kids that they're interacting with, because
Yeah.
everyone can have ideas about each other that are not great if we're not corrected.
So, it's baffling to me. I have 2 adult kids. They were raised in the New York City school system. They were on a whole public school educated. My daughter did not go to a public school for high school, but, for specific reasons. But, come elementary school, middle school, diversity was norm in how they were raised, and how people were different were embraced, because it was like, oh, isn't that cool? They do that differently in that house. That's so cool. Which, and we personally came from a very, very inclusive world.
Mhm, mhm.
I know Embrace Race has grown. You have a large footprint. So let's talk about like what you're doing and how you're doing it. I loved learning about it, so I want everybody to learn about it.
You're so great. Yeah. Not everyone, as you probably know, Ivy, grows up or raises children in very diverse environments because we're a very segregated country. And even when they do, I have to say we have a lot of followers in New York City and in all of the big cities, right? Because even though it can be easy to say diversity's cool, isn't that great that they're different? There are kind of messages and prevailing forces sort of around us that make,
Right.
even in New York, right, there's a huge and growing kind of school segregation problem. And also a lot of there's a real class divide, even among public schools, so that
Yeah.
you might think so and so is cool, but they're a good, they're someone you can relate to because they might be more in your class band, right? So you might still have ideas about people who live in that black and brown neighborhood who don't go to your school, right? Or who live in that white neighborhood who don't go to your school, right? So I think that the intentions have been good among parents and among parents who are comfortable, and that's not everybody, with a diverse environment. That speaks volumes. Where you raise your kids, where they go to school, who you say hello to, that speaks volumes. It's not just sort of talking about race, right? But the talking is important too because kids, there are a lot of negative messages about race, and not only race, about gender, about
I was going to say there's a lot of negative
right, about
messages
religion.
about anybody who is
Exactly.
different.
Right. And
If
exactly, abilities.
people don't look like we look
Exactly.
and think like we think or learn like we learn, there's different people with different learning styles, with different gifts and talents than other people have or do not have.
Right.
It goes down the line of difference.
Exactly. Yeah. And kids really are taking in for every positive message you think you're giving them, and perhaps you are, by the environment, by the books in the house, by the people you have in your home. There are also negative messages, and
Mhm.
kids are learning about all of these things. Like someone we work with a lot says kids are doing race, they're doing class, they're doing gender, they're doing religion, they're learning about it all the time, all of these things. So it's really important to not sort of pretend that you're the only source for your kids because you're really not, right? And to be able to talk about things, really find out what the kids are seeing and how they're interpreting it. That it's sort of supporting kids' healthy racial learning is really a part of healthy childhood development, supporting healthy development. It's a part of it. And just like you would about other things, you want to kind of sit on the floor with your kids when they're able to speak and say, what are you seeing at school? Who are you playing
Yeah.
with? What are the differences? Just be able to talk about it so you know what they're thinking, because they're not, you can't download what you're thinking into their brain. They're synthesizing experiences they're having without you, into their
So,
understanding.
in looking at the building of the new organization, so you have done so much to build and scale this organization in so many ways. You are in schools, you're in communities. So let's talk about like what you let the organization itself.
And what we actually do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, no, thank you for that. We have three pillars of work that we do to educate caregivers, and to help them in the lives of children, to help them educate their kids, be with their kids. There's some things we create directly for kids, but to be used with caregivers. So our three pillars, one is just resources that are really research informed. We're big on research, and there are a lot of best practices that aren't backed by research, and we do what we can until we know better, and then we change, right? So there's a lot of research.
That actually is really well said. And I'm interrupting you here. Is we do what we can until we could figure out a way to improve it. And then we improve it and then we do it again. And we
Exactly.
continue to do it.
Exactly.
And I think that gives us a space to release perfection
Oof,
and
yeah.
doing things right.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's where I had to jump in on that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just so well said, Melissa. We do what we can.
We
And
do.
as we learn more, we make some adjustments and some shifts and we continue to do what we can.
Exactly. Because lived experience, there are, and just knowing your kids, being very relational is part of how you know what to do, right? But there is great research that changes practice. And like many things, like in education as well, oftentimes there's a real divide between the research and practice. And what we're trying to do at Embrace Race is really bridge that divide, is really, and
Yeah.
that was one of the inspirations was we want to create resources that's like action guides, webinars, podcasts that really bridge that divide and inform adults in the lives of kids, including, grandparents, parents, educators,
Yeah.
what we know now and how we can do better. So that's a key thing. And the second key thing is creating community spaces. We have a lot of online classes. We have sort of learning groups where parents, educators learn together, share experiences, create new knowledge. So that's the second thing, resources, community. And the third thing is really building a field. So things like
Yeah.
researchers, like we help researchers, right, who are looking for parents and kids to study. We want to know better how to do better. So we support researchers. We organize basically what we call the field of children's racial learning, which has not been like robustly supported across sectors. So we have been the catalyst. We had a convening in May to bring together children's media folks, researchers, educator leaders, parent leaders, pediatricians, all kinds of
Right. I
people.
know because I know you've worked with psychologists and pediatricians and educators. Like you're gaining knowledge from so many perspectives
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
then develop the
Right.
support and the conversations.
Exactly. And the supports across the kid's life. Like, wouldn't it be great if the pediatrician knew to ask the questions, and the children's media was supporting sort of kids' healthy racial development, among other things, right? And that was also true at school and all of the things. So we're really trying to give people in the lives of kids more supports because they haven't had them. They really haven't had them. And there are what you say about us having so many different people speaking to children's racial learning and how you do it in a healthy way, how you support it. Nobody knows. Like, I think a lot of people have seeded, is when it comes to race, their own expertise, in their own children and
Yeah.
like to be told what to do. And actually, there's no one who can tell you what to do because your context is your context, your kid is your kid. And again, you do not need a PhD to be relational, to really sit down with kids and to understand how they're making sense of things and guide them in a way that's healthier for them and healthier for others, So it speaks to your you don't need to be perfect point. Like, actually, there is no researcher who could tell you, educator on this, or Melissa Giraud, who could give you every right answer for your family.
And I think that's one of the things that we actually need to lean into as opposed to lean away from in so many things that are the various nonprofits we've highlighted this year and past years of we're all still learning. I personally have this motto that says, "When I'm done learning, I'm done for life." That's it. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'll put my head down. I'm done.
it'll be a rip.
But
Yeah.
yep, that I think it's so important to continue to lean in to learn,
Mm.
to
Mhm.
to understand and know,
Yeah,
and understand there's everything we do will have evolution because we
absolutely.
want to evolve.
Yeah,
Evolution is good. We want to
yeah,
continue to grow and learn.
right.
And we have people from all over the world that have melted into this country. My family included. We've all melted from various places, so many of us, that there's no written manual here.
Right. And we're trying to prepare kids for a world we cannot know, right?
Right.
We've seen in our own lifetimes how things have changed, on gender, on race, and how they flip back, and on so many things, on how religion is being
Sure.
treated, so many things, class, whew, that's a huge change. So I think we need to give them the tools to understand, in the case of race, like what is race and what isn't race, like we start with talking about skin color and racial features, and oftentimes kids will have learned things about race that come up like in a classroom where they say, okay, let's compare these two people, one has darker skin, one has lighter, and what do the kids say? And you just show them, you don't say anything, and there'll always be a kid that says, even in the most progressive communities, who will say, I don't mean any offense by this, but that one is darker, you know and sometimes there'll be other kids, even kids of of color, who will say, oh, you can't say darker, my family says that that's an insult. So kids really need to be shown that these words are, like, some people believe that's an insult, but we don't, and we're just describing. In this moment, we're just
Right.
describing, and it's all beautiful. And all of those associations kids have, because they do, with sort of race, about intelligence, about beauty, about so many things, about power. We need to decouple those things from the conversation about what we're seeing. And then we can talk about, like, literally seeing, and then we can talk about the patterns we're seeing. And why are we seeing
Right.
these patterns, right?
So let me ask you this. Having founded this organization close to 10 years ago,
Mhm.
what has surprised you as a leader?
Yeah, I think what's been surprising, it's so funny because I am asked to speak about my leadership, sometimes in
Right. I know
classes.
you are.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I didn't really think of myself as a leader, and that's because of, who gets touted as a leader. And I spoke to a class a couple months ago where they were a teacher education class, or they were going to be admin people, and they had been surveyed, do you consider yourself a leader? And about 10% of them said yes. And then I came in, with my co-founder, and I said, I really didn't consider myself a leader because of all these things. And then I realized I've been leading on this my whole life, and there are different ways to be a leader. And after
Right.
that class and talking about it, the professor resurveyed the class, and over 85% of them said, I'm a leader, that they were considered
Beautiful.
leaders. Isn't that amazing? So it is like I've been doing it. So that's been a big revelation. And I think also, again, when you lean into, your authentic leadership style, right? And the things that for sure, which are sort of that these things matter, people respond. Like, people really respond to me as a leader, Ivy.
So that's what it's like. Can you believe this? It's been so
I
surprising.
am
People
moving.
really respond
I
to
am
me as a
leading.
leader.
Right, 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 right. And it's needed. And
Yeah.
I know that now, but it's just, and that's part of my work, is building all of our capacity. Like, people think
Yeah.
they can't lead in this way. They can't be an expert on their kids when it comes to race and all of these things. And they can, and they are, so do it with more intention.
So if you can give a tip to all parents
Mhm.
as we're raising our children, as we're part of our grandchildren's lives,
Yeah.
as we're part of any young person's lives as in our communities,
Yeah.
what can that be?
I think we often think as adults, especially talking to kids, that we have to know the answer. And I really do think it's fine, and I do it all the time, to say, I don't know. Let's find out. I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out. And what you're demonstrating is exactly what you were saying earlier, Ivy, that, learning, the best teachers are the best learners. Like, learning is the thing, and having the right questions, and feeling comfortable hearing the questions and asking them and not shutting them down, and really teaching your kid that, oh, you have agency. Let's go find out together. Let's do something about it together. What should we do? That's the
And
tip I would give.
I love that of showing up from a place of being curious together.
Mm.
And you're actually then teaching the younger generation And I'm not saying young, I'm saying younger generation. And sometimes
Right.
that's just the generation younger than wherever we are some days,
Yes. Yes.
of showing up as a place from a place of curiosity.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, parents need to
And
know
what
that.
are we teaching the younger generations to show up from a place of being curious?
Mhm. That's it. That's it.
I love that.
Good.
Melissa, thank you so much for joining me here on Her Success Story, especially for bringing Embrace Race to the forefront during the Her Success Story nonprofit series and helping so many parents know more and learn more to raise kids with a great curiosity and for seeing people as different and embracing our differences. I always say, at least this is one of my visions. I love a good carousel. I grew up in a town that was like had a famous carousel. Okay, so don't judge people. I like a good carousel. And I would look and I was like, oh, but I want to ride on that horse because it's so beautiful. But this one is so beautiful and it has this, and oh, this one is so cool, it has that. And I want to do every one because they were so different and they were still all to me all beautiful.
Mhm.
And that's, if we can take that idea forward as leaders of seeing the beauty and embracing the differences and continuing, lean into and know about organizations like Embrace Race in our communities, our schools, our cultures to open conversations. So thank you, Melissa. Anything I did not ask you?
Ivy, I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this. I really appreciate your interest, your authentic interest, and you having me on the show. Thank you.
The listeners, you're very welcome. This is what I'm going to say at this point. Take a deep breath in, let it out. Identify one thing, one takeaway, one aha from listening to Melissa and I's conversation. And then write it down. I don't care if it's in pen and paper, your phone, or your computer. It doesn't matter. Just jot it down somewhere, somehow. And make a decision on one action you're going to take based on that takeaway. If every week you show up to Her Success Story and walk away with an action, your life, your leadership, your careers, your businesses will be in consistent motion forward. And that is a greatest place to be. Blatant shout out one more time. If everybody could show up with $10 for every nonprofit, it's not that hard. Thanks, Melissa. Happy holidays to all and keep giving forward. See you next time.